Finally, we can come home a little bit.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Oh, and I appreciate when you do. If you're a new viewer, we always welcome that. Thanks for joining us. We've had a tumultuous political environment for years and for 2024, but more specifically and obviously for the last month. And I'm pretty transparent here about how we put this program together. We tape it on Thursday afternoons, and you see it on Friday on Fox and the various programs on the weekend, including CW on Sunday and Channel 12 on Sunday night. But we've been caught between this rock and a hard place, right? Because we tape on Thursday, and then some incredible development happens on Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and the weekend, and we've been catching up. And so for the last 3 programs, you have seen Professor Joe Camarano from Providence College as we kind of chase the news and try to package it. And finally, last week was his trifecta show where we kind of put the national scene into some kind of context and perspective. And I hope you've enjoyed us in our conversation and kind of chasing the storyline and the news cycle. FYI, I'm recording this program a week ago, but you're seeing it originally here with the Speaker of the House, Joe Shekarchi, who will join me momentarily. It's always a pleasure to have the Speaker. He's, I think, brought a lot of, just maturity to the State House. And while he and I don't agree on some things, he has just, he's comported himself in a way which is really counterintuitive to what I think is the national political environment. So I'll be kind of interested to get his take on what's happening nationally. And so now, on this Thursday, I can say that last Wednesday, not last night, but last Wednesday, Joe Biden tried to package this whole situation by explaining that he was not going to run for office. Obviously, you've seen most of this, but just a reminder.
Nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Right, and that just gives Kamala Harris the chance to start fresh. I mean, by now you've seen a million clips of her, but she was excited last week.
We have doors to knock on. We have people to talk to. We have phone calls to make. And we have an election to win.
And so the chair of the delegation here in Rhode Island is the Speaker of the House, Joe Shekarchi, and though there's so much, you and I never get to cover all the things you want to cover.
True.
Mostly because there's so many things to cover, and because you like to give long answers.
I try to be calm. I try to answer the question. They tell, by the way, my staff says, don't answer the question, talk about your issues. But it's the lawyer in me that just wants to answer the question.
It's a pleasure to have you, my friend, and I appreciate you coming in. And so why don't we, notwithstanding what might have happened in an 8-day period between the time we recorded this and when you see, I think the tumult is over in terms of, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I think we're kind of settled into, we have a new candidate on the Democratic side. Donald Trump is okay and not going anywhere, and we'll see.
You forgot that
we
could have we will have a new vice presidential candidate as well on the Democratic side.
Yeah, you know what?
But I don't think it'll be in 8 days. How's that?
No, I think we're going to. I think as people are watching this on the weekend that they're watching it, I think we're going to see it coming up. But you know what? Who knows what could happen? So obviously there are things I want to talk to you about in terms of wrapping up the session and all the work that was done at the legislature. So let's park that for segments 2 and 3 if we can. Because you are the chair of the delegation and you'll be out in Chicago the week of the 19th. By the way, it'd be great for you to check in with me. Can you check in with me on a daily basis?
If you want me to, I'll call your show periodically every day if we can.
Yeah, on the radio, that would be great.
And call your radio show and give you an update of what happened the night before and what's coming up the day before. I'd be more than happy to. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, it'd be kind of you to do that. You know, what's interesting about conventions in general over the last few decades is that they've been predictable in terms of their outcomes. I mean,
In a coronation.
right, but we had a moment there where there was a thought that there might have been an open convention, that the pressure that was coming on the president to relieve himself of a re-election bid, and some discord that may have occurred, or just what old-fashioned competition might have brought. There might have been an open convention and a delegate competition. But man, had that door shut in about a, 12-hour period after he made his written announcement prior to his statement in the Oval Office. What's your take on that?
It has to do with electability, and it has to do with just the mechanics of where we are. The Harris-Biden or Biden-Harris ticket had over 1,000 field offices, has over $200 million in the bank. Even if you had a really good candidate who might want to run for president, without that infrastructure and without that ability to, unless you can self-fund that kind of money, which very few people in this country can, that kind of money in a short amount of time, it would be physically almost impossible to run a, really a significant type of a campaign. We as a Democratic Party, I'm using the big D in this, would be severely disadvantaged versus the Republicans if it was anyone else who didn't have those resources, those name recognition, those party infrastructure. It's very easily transferable to the vice president. It's not so easily transferable to anyone else.
And specifically the money.
Clearly the money. And as we're taping this, there are challenges being made by the Republican Party on the I don't think they're significant. I don't think they're substantial. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. But they're being made. Can you imagine if there were another candidate, another, say, governor from another state who was going to run and actually was able to secure enough votes? There'd be a lot more challenges made to transfer those money and resources and field offices, employees, and everything else. I don't know how to say this. The political acumen across the board in the citizenry is not very high right now, and people confuse primary votes with general election votes. Correct.
And the Republicans are doing their job, adding to that confusion by suggesting that 14 million Americans had already made a decision for Joe Biden. And to Joe Biden's point, until he did acquiesce, he was talking about 14 million Americans had spoken about his candidacy. But the truth of the matter is he's the only one on the primary tickets for the most part. And the parties are private organizations.
That's correct.
And people vote actually to send people like you to the convention to make the ultimate voting choice for the nomination. And that construct, I'm not sure, is completely understood by every citizen. So in that context, what do you think of this complaint that's been issued that Kamala Harris got no votes to be able to enjoy this nomination?
It is totally irrelevant, and if that's the best that the Republican body can come up with, they're going to be in real trouble. Look, this is going to come down to electability. There is about 48% of this country that are going to vote Republican. There's 48% of this country is going to vote Democrat, and there's about 4% in the middle that are going to decide this election. And it really comes down to what's important to those 4%.
And where are they, by the way? It's like swing states and all that kind of thing.
The swing states.
We're not one of them.
No, we're not.
We're not in the hunt.
No, but neither is California, neither is Texas. So don't look at it as in terms of size. It's just the makeup of our votership. So size doesn't really play an issue. What it comes down to is where are those 4 to 5% of independent voters who haven't made up their mind yet going to vote? And that's what this election is all about. And all this other stuff is on the periphery. I mean, the stuff you're hearing from J.D. Vance, the stuff you're hearing from President Trump, and to some degree the stuff you're hearing from the Democrats are not going to really sway a lot of people. It's all targeted. It's all trying to do is convince those 4 to 5% of people who are undecided, people who may have voted for Trump before and regret, people who may have voted for Biden before and now regret. Where are they going to go? They're going to come back to where they voted, which party? Are they going to switch parties? Or they're not going to vote at all. What I will tell you that since the vice president has become the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party, she's raised over $120 million. And there's been, I heard yesterday a report, over 40 to 50,000 new people who registered to vote.
That's as we speak,
Yes.
7 days in advance of, or 8 days in advance of you seeing the show for the first time.
So the point I'm making is there's a lot of enthusiasm. The Democratic Party has...
You bullish on her?
Yes.
Why?
Because she has all of the traits and characteristics that Biden didn't have: the age, the mental sharpness, and the physical stamina. Not the issues, because they are very much aligned on the issues. And I think the issues are what will decide this race and how they're presented. But you don't remember about elections in general, here in Rhode Island and nationally. Elections are never about the past or the present. Elections are always about the future. And that's where I think people had a lot of constellation with President Biden. Not that he can't do the job today, he's not doing the job today, or he did bad on a debate performance, or will he be able to finish the next 4 months of his term? Those were not real issues in the eyes of the American people. It was, can this man withstand another 4 years? That starts in 2025 and goes until 2029.
As we've,
and the answer to that, I think, was no, and I think he ultimately realized that.
As we are speaking, Donald Trump has admitted that his tone is now reverting back to pre-shooting. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that. And it's been really nasty. And I'm guessing by the time you're seeing this, it's gotten even nastier.
Not surprising.
It's going to be a gender thing. I think there's an undertone of misogyny that begins with his mispronunciation of her name chronically. But it still is, even within the black female community in this country, a sense of, I don't know if we're ready. I hope we are ready for a black woman to be the president of the United States. What's your gut check?
I think I think you're right. The president has shifted tone and gone back. I think it's a little bit of nervousness on his part. When you're uncertain, you tend to go to your comfort zone, and his comfort zone is attack mode, and it's very nasty. And that's just the way he has run his campaign. That's the way he's operated, since he was president. And he feels nervous. I think he felt very comfortable running against Joe Biden, an older Joe Biden who didn't do well in debate. I thought Trump was nice because he felt like he was way ahead, and I think he's not so way ahead right now. And I think he's reverting back to a comfort zone, comfortable for him, not comfortable for the country.
So on the issue of gender and race,
yeah, they will run on that issues. I'm sure that it'll be subtle. It won't be direct.
is America ready?
I think America is ready. Personally, they said the same thing when we elected a black president in Barack Obama, and he had a Muslim first name.
Speaking of
we elected him because ultimately those 4 to 5% that we talked about earlier, they're very an intelligent vote. They're people who vote chronically and they vote on issues, and they're not swayed. Because if they were swayed, they'd be in one camp or the other.
Before we get to some of the state issues, let's talk about tone. I said at the top of the show that you've brought a maturity to the office that I think has, and even in a sense of sportsmanship, it's part of your disposition. There's nobody I've ever met in politics or out who's met you who doesn't enjoy your company.
Oh, there are a few. You might not have met them, but there are a few.
Well, nobody's perfect, but nobody. You're not an agitator. You're a hard negotiator. You're a little bit that smile while you're killing somebody. You're not a pushover or any of those kind of things. But you wanted to bring a tone. You brought a tone, and even amongst the worst thing that you've had to suffer is a frivolous ethics commission investigation, which we've already meted out here, so we're not going to go there. But there's work that got done in these last few sessions, and Republicans, although they've been arguing on their points and want things like a inspector general and maybe a constitutional convention, those are old-fashioned, good old-fashioned policy arguments. We're not getting a lot out of the legislature, chairs flying and people calling each other awful names, that kind of thing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What's your perspective about how the nation is running in its political world versus how this place is running?
Well, I think it's easier for me in Rhode Island to espouse that because I generally like everybody in the House, whether they're Democrat or Republican, whether they're progressive or moderate or conservative. I like them individually. And I try to get to know people individually. And I think the greatest strength that I have brought is one-on-one meetings, small group meetings, where I've tried to learn about people and listen to them. And not at the State House. I try to go into your community. I try to go into Cumberland, whether it's the Cumberland House of Pizza and meet the Cumberland reps, or I go to Warwick or Westerly or Woonsocket or Newport or wherever, and try to see what's the local important issue. So it's important for my reps, and it's important for the state, and I need to know about it. I need to do that. I think also, generally, I think that the Republican leadership, for the most part, has been very fair-minded. I'm talking about Republican leadership in the House, not the party activists. I want to separate them because I have some strong philosophical and personal differences. But the elected Republicans are generally good people. We may see issues differently, but I respect them as individuals, and I respect their opinions, and I incorporate. And if Mike Chippendale, who's the Republican minority leader, comes up with a really good idea, and I think it saves the state money, which he has, by the way, on many occasions, I incorporate that in the budget. And I want to give Mike credit for it. He doesn't want to take it, to his credit. He said, Speaker, if it's good for the state, it's good for everybody, just put it in the budget. You don't have to give me accolades for it. So that's the kind of person that he is. And I think that's reflective of the tone of the Republican minority party in the House. And we work collaboratively. Brian Newberry, who I might not get along with him on every single issue, he and I agree on, I guess, more than we disagree. And I would say that he's a very smart and talented attorney, and he came up with a lot of laws, and I brought a lot of those bills to the floor. Sherry Roberts had a bill about criminal justice. We brought it to the floor. We passed, by the way, their bills because they were good bills, not because there's an agreement or arrangement or a deal.
It's a working government, and I think at least for that, we're thankful for that.
And nationally, I think, I've spent some time in Washington. I'm going to be there in September. But I will tell you is there's two different Washingtons. There's a kind that you see during the day, and there's a kind of Washington you see at night where they actually go out and socialize in the most conservative elements and some of the more progressive elements, and they get along personally, but they're afraid. This is the sad part about Washington. They're afraid to be friends in the daytime. If they're afraid to be seen even talking to or having lunch with somebody at the Senate dining room or the House dining room, because the leadership or some of their other more or less tolerant members would see them, hey, you had lunch with Dan York. Why? How come? You know he's a Democrat. You know he's a Republican. You know he's conservative. You know he's progressive. Irrelevant.
By the way, you still got an itch to scratch to go down there?
Yes. I always do. Always keep my eye open. I follow local government as well as national politics, local politics. I enjoy it. We'll keep our options open.
I'm trying to figure out what the avenue is. I guess it's...
But if I did, I'd have less time to come on your show and talk to you.
Well, you shouldn't. That shouldn't ever be an excuse. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the local issues that were important in this session. Stay with us.
They can't say, oh, well, the bill doesn't allow me to talk about an officer. Well, it does now. Speak on it. So if you've got a bad officer, he's a bad officer. If he's a good officer, it's a good officer. And it helps not just a good officer, but it gets rid of that bad officer.
That's State Representative Raymond Hall, who had a principal role in negotiations on a revision on the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights, which has a new acronym that both the Speaker and I can't pronounce or suggest. But we have a new thing. And listen, the national politics is dominating everybody's consciousness. At least you were able to get some work done, and the world was paying attention to the work before all heck was breaking loose nationally in terms of the political scene. That was a chief objective of yours. You and I had a good battle or two over the last couple of years.
You criticized me roundly for not passing it on the last hour of the last night last year without a hearing.
Roundly, I think, is probably mildly putting
yes.
it. I was not happy with you.
I know that.
But
I remember
listen,
that.
But you made a commitment to get it done, to your credit. And it seems now like the package is sound. Give me 30 seconds on it because I want to hit a couple of things.
It's a great package. I think it incorporates a lot of what the Senate did in terms of the study commission, a lot of what the advocates have wanted for years, and it's the first time in 40 years that we made reform to it. I'm proud.
Transparency.
Accountability.
More
review. And more independent review.
Independent review. And more authority by chiefs to be able to speak their mind without violating the union contract.
Yeah, certification, reporting requirements, 2 tiers, one for small infractions, internal department matters, and a much different, any kind of interaction with the public is a much different disciplinary process.
All right. Other things that you're happy about from the session?
Obviously the housing package, we got 13, 14 very important bills passed. Obviously a balanced budget. We made some significant improvements with, retirement security for employees who've been shut out, so-called COLA increases, cost of living increases. We were able to adjust it to people who retired and were planning on a COLA and were getting a COLA, and that was taken away from them. We have restored a limited COLA to them because, quite frankly, they need it. The rules were changed before they retired, and they needed it, and they were the poorest of the poor, and they've gone the longest without any kind of
You're
increase.
in a world now, though, that there's no more free money out there.
That is absolutely correct.
There's no more COVID dough. There's some part COVID dough still yet to be fully spent. Correct.
That is correct.
However, there's no manna from heaven. The silver lining on the disease, which is that a lot of money was dispersed. We're back on our own.
We have to, as a state, I had this discussion with the governor this morning, we have to learn to live within our own means.
When we come back, the bridge, his perspective on the bridge, the bridge. Stay with us. Being a legislator and the Speaker of the House, it's a lot of policy, it's a lot of problem fixing, but you don't have to manage the day-to-day operations of the state like the governor does. What's your take on the bridge, Bill?
Well,
by the way, that whole thing you put together with, the legislation that forced the reporting from the DOT, that was such a political shenanigan on the legislature's part. What a joke that was. You're a smart politician. You just fed the East Side delegation a little bit of thing that
East Bay
delegation. They can go, oh, see the work we're doing, as if they weren't getting the information that they needed from the DOT or the governor's office. That was a sham. That was a sham.
Your
opinion? Listen. If you come in here and don't get some hard time from me, you're not happy anyway. That was a sham.
But you didn't talk about the $85 million though that we gave.
For?
That wasn't for the bridge.
Well, it gave. What do you mean? It's charity? We have a bridge broken.
No, I understand.
Were you a hero?
No. But what I'm trying to say, there was real dollars behind those reports and real dollars behind the legislation that you call a political, piece of legislation. We made real substantive commitment. The governor had a proposal to stop borrowing some money to pay for the bridge. I didn't want to stop borrowing because I don't know what the future holds. So we made a commitment as a state, and it was passed.
I think your financial reaction has been sound. What's your gut tell you on just the
it's going to take number one. It's going to be, we don't know the cost. It's going to take a lot longer than was originally predicted. I'm going to Washington D.C. in September. I hope I'm going to try to meet with Secretary Buttigieg to get an update of where we are. We have an application in for a mega grant right now. We're working with Jack Reed, who sits on appropriations, as well as.
So while you're not managing the project, you're on it.
I am very much on it. It is top of mind on it. It's top of mind. I had a meeting last week with the East Bay delegation in Bristol. I went over the bridge. It was no easy chore to go over the bridge and come back. And I understand it, and we are committed to do our part as a General Assembly to fund that.
Good to see you. We'll talk to you during the convention.
Absolutely.
Try to take a break this summer, will you?
Thank you. I'll do my best. Right. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
Final word when we get back. All right, listen, thanks for tuning in. We'll get back to it next week, probably. There'll be a vice presidential choice, and we'll try to stay on top of it and try to synchronize this program with the current events. It can be a challenge, but I hope you're enjoying your summer, and I hope you're watching every night and weeknights or weekdays, 3 to 6 on WPRI. Bye.